activist with her iwi, and we never forget those union days, Mr. Speaker, in terms of what her whānau's done. And our judge who joins us here today, good to have her here, who I appointed, so good to have you here. Good to have you here, Judge, to Judge Alana, who's here for this kaupapa. I was listening to some of the kōrero and some excellent kōrero today. There's so, and the good thing about this is that we as a parliament can move together on this kaupapa. That's one thing that we can move together on, you know. But a kaupapa, it's ironic, as Adrian Rudolph said, we go for years and years and years, we don't even get an apology and we don't even get a pūtea. What are you doing, Judge? You know, it's we need some sort of recognition here of the trials and tribulations that some of the people go through. It's so much cost, and that's why I mihi to these individuals who've done so much. And I'll say to the Minister Goldsmith over there, who we regularly debate, Mr. Speaker, every week, and he thinks he outpoints me. Well done in terms of continuing the work that Andrew Little did, in terms of continuing the work that Chris Finlayson has done, and it's great we move to this position, Mr. Speaker. But for our people, it's as I've said before, and I'll say again, in terms of treaty bills and these type of kaupapa, we move these bills and we move these initiatives off the back of a government that is continually attacking Māori rights. And that's the problem, Mr. Speaker. And I talked about Mr. Seymour, the Ngāti Rehia whanaunga today, and I cannot leave the House this year without talking about some of the attacks on Māori in terms of the last bill of the year, Mr. Speaker. And I know it seems a bit out for some people, but well, no, it's appropriate because you're talking about a party that's brought in the Treaty Principles Bill, Mr. Speaker, that set up the biggest hikoi and protests we've seen at Parliament in history. We bring this bill under the shadow of a decision from the United Nations, Mr. Goldsmith. The United Nations, who have said that there is no racial equality in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is getting worse and worse. Mr. Speaker, that decision just came out last week. And so I bring this in off the back of the bill where Kipper Munro has welcomed this bill. He says the par side has significance to the whole of Ngāpuhi and particularly Ngāti Rehia, and the hapu was looking forward to getting the site back, Mr. Speaker. But I'm sure Mr. Munro and others are feeling the pressures of this constant attack from the government. When we're talking about a Ngāpuhi settlement today, Mr. Speaker. That's the hope. Whether I don't know whenever Ngāpuhi's going to, Willow Jean Prime might know, but we'll never know when Ngāpuhi's going to settle. But this has been, this is an initial move, but it's very hard to settle when you have a government constantly attacking. We've had the Treaty Settlements Bill, the Treaty Principles Bill, we've had the Regulatory Standards Bill, Mr. Speaker, we've had the Marine Coastal Bill, we've had the Fast Track Bill. It is constant. And so when you have the pressures hovering over you all the time, it's a tribute to this Parliament that we're able to get this type of bill through. It's a tribute to this Parliament. And so it was good to see Winston Peters and Shane Jones and coming in here, and particularly Shane, of course, who can give us a terrific dialogue in terms of whakapapa. No one better in the House, Mr. Speaker, no doubt about that. No doubt about that, but I have to remind my old friend that we need support in terms of fast track. We need acknowledgement in terms of tikanga Māori with regards to fast track. That has been factored out. We need acknowledgement, Willow Jean Prime needs acknowledgement and support in terms of Te Reo Māori, which has been factored out now in terms of the boards of trustees, Mr. Speaker. I asked today, when will this stop? When will this stop? On the last day of our term, when we rightfully put forward a beautiful settlement in terms of kororipo pā and the return, the question has to be, will the government wake up before, during election year, or will this continue? So I put that on the table today, and so I will not apologise for bringing it to the attention of the House. I will not apologise for reminding our friends from Ngāti Rehia that one of the big debates in this House was the use of the very word Aotearoa, Mr. Speaker. Aotearoa, where we had one of our most respected leaders questioning the relevance of the name of this country. And so I put that on the House today, but congratulate everyone for moving this bill through, for moving this kaupapa through. A kaupapa that reminds New Zealanders that we can work together. That we can work together with ministers of different backgrounds, and where injustice is, we will recognise it, we will support it. But the fight in terms of Māori, in terms of kaupapa Māori, is a fight that, and is a challenge that this Parliament must embrace over the next 12 months, or otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we might see another hikoi of the proportions that we had last year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to Ngāti Rehia, kia tātou katoa, meri kirihimete me ngā mihi o te tauhou, kia tātou katoa.
Rima Nakley.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I left my office probably around 12:37 a.m. this morning because I was in the office reflecting on how momentous this day is, Mr. Speaker. And as much as I'd like to respond to some of the comments made just before me, I won't, because I want to focus on this important, colossal kaupapa that is such an important and beautiful day in our history that I'm proud to be standing up, and privileged rather, to be standing up and adding some thoughts amongst the thoughts that were conveyed today. I want to welcome Ngāti Rehia and Ngāpuhi into the House. I want to say thank you. Thank you for your genuine, authentic, beautiful manaakitanga that you showed us when we were up there in Yorohe. It's like many of my colleagues have said, it's indeed unforgettable. What's that song? Unforgettable. But it really was. So thank you very much. This bill, Mr. Speaker, the Koriripo Pa Vesting Bill, it essentially does one thing quite clearly and quite deliberately. It vests Koriripo Pa in the trust that's going to be a guardian of the land, of the pā site, for the greater people of Ngāpuhi. And what we're doing here today is one of those technical things where we're giving legal effect to an agreement that's already been entered into by the Crown, but it's important that this legal effect takes place so that then the party that you guys are organising up there in the gallery can also take place. And the real guardianship, well, it has been. You've been taking care of it for so long, but on paper, it can take effect, because this is land that's been disputed for a very long time, Mr. Speaker, in history. That dispute was consistent and unresolved for generations. And I'm really quietly pleased that today this bill resolves finally the status of the land, not in a way that it rewrites history, but in a way that it responds and corrects to history. Mr. Speaker, we've heard a lot about what the details of this bill are, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to fast forward a bit to the last couple of months. As we heard, the Māori Affairs Select Committee, we tried successfully, very hard, to make sure that this bill will pass this year, because it was very important to our Minister, Minister Goldsmith. It was very important to the Minister Potaka, and indeed it was very important to our Prime Minister, from the conversations that I was blessed to be privy to, that it's very important that we pass this year. Bless you. I want to say that when I learnt that the meaning of Koriripo Pa, one of the meanings of Koriripo is swirling waters, I remember a conversation I had with the Honourable Marama Davidson when we were on another trip, and she explained the word mokopuna and how essentially broken up it means blueprint and a spring of water, and how our children are the blueprints of our tupuna, of their tupuna, and it continues. And I thought about how beautiful it is that waters, swirling waters and mokopuna come into play today, because I know with our Māori brothers and sisters that your mokopuna is essentially the reason, the drive, and the end which justifies your means over and over with a lot of your mahi, including this kaupapa today. I found that quite beautiful. I want to acknowledge our kuia that's sitting up there today. Nora, thank you very much again for your beautiful gentility, but also your strength, your perseverance, and your endurance. And I want to also thank you, Kipa Munro, Aranga Tira in your own right, for what you shared with us that day when we were in your rohe. And you know, they say that the kumara does not speak of its own sweetness, but I hope the Ngāpuhi Tupuna can make an exception today, because you deserve recognition for how much the role that you've played in getting us to where we are today. Others paint a picture, Mr. Speaker, when we're on a piece of land, but Kipa Munro constructed the picture for us so that those of us that were there, my colleagues and I, could truly imagine, envisage, feel and understand the magnitude of the Kororipo Pa sites with the terraces and the plethora of homes that once existed there. And Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of conversation back and forth about what this vesting bill means in terms of a settlement for Ngāpuhi. And all I'd like to say is this. I hope that this bill is a seed for a tree that grows into that long-awaited settlement for Ngāpuhi. And the tree could be the seed could either grow into a rimu, slow-growing, with medicinal qualities for the heart, or it could be a manuka that's fast-growing, but the medicinal qualities are astounding. And I hope the seed is a manuka. I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Te piri whakahoki I Kororipo Pa vesting bills, third reading.
Now, I understand we will have a waiata. Kia ora. Members, we come now to the debate on the quality of life for ageing New Zealanders, arranged by the Business Committee under Standing Order 80. Would some honourable member care to move that the House take note of the quality of life for ageing New Zealanders?
Mr. Speaker, I so note, and it is an honour to be able to stand and speak on the first speech on the quality of life for ageing New Zealanders. And this is absolutely something that all members of this House and across New Zealand will be interested in making sure that we get right, because we all have loved ones that are elderly. We ourselves will hopefully be elderly one day, and it's in everyone's best interest that we can act in a bipartisan manner to make people of age live with dignity and respect, and in a way that's also manageable and sustainable for the government. And I was reflecting as I was thinking about this that, if you would bear me some minor indulgence, Mr. Speaker, that I'm going into a Christmas with ageing parents and ageing father, and he's in a retirement village, and I want to make sure that I spend as much time as I can with him over these coming holidays, because you never know, Mr. Speaker, when they may not be there anymore. Look, the government is very serious about making sure that New Zealanders age well, and you've seen a number of announcements in this space recently. We want an integrated approach to reform the aged care system. The recent announcement of a ministerial advisory group will take a non-political, independent approach to making sure that we can develop mechanisms to best address and best suit what is needed. And there are three key areas that the Ministerial Advisory Group will look at. Firstly, the funding models to support sustainable services and the sustainable supply of aged care beds. Also, how the costs of providing aged care can be reasonably shared between those receiving the care and the government. And thirdly, the changes needed to support cohesion and integration between aged care services and health services, and between aged care services and the disability sector. Ensuring a sustainable supply of aged care beds is critical to ensuring that all New Zealanders have the care they need as they age. The recommendations from the expert Ministerial Advisory Group are expected in mid-2026, with changes to the funding model to be implemented in 2027. So there's significant policy implications and considerations, and they will shape future government's recommendations. We also need a system that responds and recognises that most New Zealanders do want to age at home if they can, where feasible. So to enable that to happen and to move between the different layers of care as they need it is essential to ensuring that we can fulfil that. And we have had a lot of challenges regarding, we have an ageing demographic. There is no way to get past the fact that we have a significantly higher proportion of New Zealanders over 65 years of age, and that is expected to continue, or will continue into the future, and with a relatively low proportion of New Zealanders of working age. So the implications to the state are going to be considerable. With advances in healthcare and nutrition, people are also living longer, which adds a further dimension. And we are also seeing a number of additional New Zealanders living with dementia, which places more complex needs on our aged care system. But around those funding improvements, there was a recent announcement that the aged residential care sector would receive a 4% uplift. So that will see a total uplift or increase of 96 million this year, coupled with an additional 44 million for the home, community and support services. So bringing in additional funding of 140 million. And this is on top of the 129 million from the previous year. So all up very close to 270 million over that 2-year period. And these funding increases are aimed at relieving pressure that's on the sector and improving care services for New Zealanders in the short term, while we work on those longer term pieces that will come through that Ministerial Advisory Group recommendations. So essentially fixing the basics, Mr. Speaker, and building the future. and that is something that we are very focused to do. There's also been an announcement of case mix model in the South Island that will be rolled out throughout the South Island, which we believe is a move away from task-based providers paid by the hour for specific tasks to a more flexible care arrangements in which are more responsive to the needs that people face. We believe that this new service model will deliver better care with a focus on keeping people as independent as long as possible. We have heard a lot about the number of people living in retirement villages. I have a father who lives in one with his partner, and I was there recently, and they have a very good quality of life there. But it's fair to say that not all New Zealanders enjoy that quality of life. And we know that there are a number of New Zealanders who reach the age of 65 with very limited superannuation savings. They may not have a property that they own. They are then out of a workforce, and with a number of years left to sustain themselves, and not necessarily the means to do so. And we need to address a lot of those issues. There are some significant long-term structural challenges for New Zealand to face in that regard. We have heard a lot of concerns from people living in retirement villages around the conditions there, or the inequities or the unfairness, and there was a recent announcement by Ministers Costello and Potaka in reviewing the Retirement Villages Act, which was an agreement, coalition agreement between New Zealand First and the National Party. And some of the key improvements to come out of that are a process for former residents to apply for early access to funds in specific circumstances, interest being paid after 6 months if a unit remains unlicensed, repayment of funds no later than 12 months when a unit is vacated. And we heard some stories from very distressed family members when a loved one had left a village, a retirement village, and the unit was not sold for a number of years. You know, people want closure in these circumstances, and their estate and their families want to move on. And also stopping the quite insidious practice of charging fees and deductions to a resident who is no longer with us and no longer at the village. This bill is expected to be taken to Parliament mid-next year, and then we'll go through the select committee process. I also want to make mention of the work the Health Committee did, the inquiry into aged care sector, current and future capacity to provide services for people with experienced neurological cognitive disorders, and I can see a number of members from the committee here across the House. Thank you all for your participation. It was wonderful that we had a report that we were able to bring back to the House that had unanimous support. And thank you for everyone for your contributions into that. We made a number of visits up and down the country to a variety of aged care facilities, and we came out with 14 recommendations. And some of the key ones were around increasing the transparency of funding, looking at a range of incentives to ensure that providers can build or are able to build or incentivised to build the facilities that are required. The development of more dementia beds, where there's currently some real financial struggles for providers around providing those. Changes to encourage flexibility in the home, community and support services contracting, so they can perform a range of tasks with a holistic view to keep people out of hospital and keep them well. And also looking at some of the longer term contracting and national consistency in the HCSS provider framework, and setting up regular respite care program. Look, there are a number of recommendations there, and I believe the government will consider them duly. Obviously there's funding challenges and other considerations that need to take place, but I just want to once again acknowledge Health Committee members from around the House for their participation in that. Look, I think I've covered all the major pieces that I want to, Mr. Speaker, but I just want to reiterate how important it is that we take a long-term bipartisan approach to this, that we fix what's in front of us right now, and that we are able to build the systems that we need for the future to enable all New Zealanders to age with dignity and respect, and appreciating that there will be cultural variances and challenges throughout New Zealand that also need to be factored in and addressed. But we can do this in a bipartisan and collegial manner and make sure that we deliver for the long-term challenges that we have in this area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now I understand there's a 5-minute split call. Ingrid Leary.
There was a headline from my own electorate of Tairi published by the Otago Daily Times on the 31st of August. And that headline said everything we need to know about this broad debate, quality of life for ageing New Zealanders. The headline said, quality of life dropping for Otago seniors, survey. And Mr. Speaker, that wasn't a slogan, that was a warning. And the survey found that about 2/3 of Otago seniors reported a clear decline in their quality of life. And that decline was caused by the cost of living, health costs, and mobility costs. And most concerning was that almost 1 in 3 said they had delayed seeking medical care because of money. 1 in 3, Mr. Speaker. Now that is not a failure of personal responsibility, that is a failure of policy. And what is happening in Otago is not an outlier. It is the same story being told right around the country. Too often, seniors are being treated as a challenge to be managed rather than an opportunity. An opportunity to honour people who raised families, who paid taxes, who built communities, who served in our defence forces, and in many cases are raising grandkids and caring for others. People who now themselves are asking whether they can afford to eat properly, whether they can heat their home, or whether many, like in my electorate, are choosing to stay in bed longer because it's warmer and cheaper. To those people, especially in Tairi, perhaps watching this debate, I want to say kia ora. I see you, Labour sees you, this speech is for you. It is a privilege, Mr. Speaker, to stand here as Labour's spokesperson for seniors, a group far too often invisible in political decision making. And I work with seniors organisations across the country, and what I hear is consistent and clear. Older New Zealanders are being asked to carry the heaviest burden in a cost of living crisis they did not create. And I feel now like I'm channeling the late, great Jo Miller from Grey Power, from my electorate as well. May she rest in peace. If she was here, she would be saying costs are rising, support is shrinking, decisions are being made about seniors, not with them. And the result is a steady erosion of independence, dignity and security. Mr. Speaker, quality of life is not an abstract concept. It is about groceries, it is about power bills, it is about transport, and it is about health care. It is about seeing a GP when you need one, whether you can get to hospital safely, whether you can stay connected to your community instead of becoming isolated. And too often what I hear from seniors is anxiety. Transport, healthcare and income security are not side issues. They are the foundations of ageing well. And that is why government choices matter, Mr. Speaker. That is why the choices of this government matter. Under Christopher Luxon, every day life has become harder for seniors, harder and more expensive. Food costs more, power bills keep rising, transport is less affordable, healthcare is harder to access, and rates are going through the roof. These are not inconveniences, they are barriers to independence. And while seniors lie awake at night worrying about rising insurance premiums and whether they will be forced to sell the homes that they worked their entire lives to save for, this government talks up their trickle-down economics. Well, how well has that gone down for them? Yesterday's financial report card shows that unless you are a multinational, a big tobacco company or a large digital platform, their economic policies are not working. Councils have been thrown under the bus regarding water reform, and meanwhile it is seniors who are picking up the tab. Then just yesterday, the government made life even harder, cutting discounted public transport for disabled New Zealanders and doing that during a cost of living crisis. How out of touch is that, Mr. Speaker? Many seniors are disabled and this directly affects them. Under Christopher Luxon, disabled people, including seniors, will now pay more just to get to their healthcare appointments. Labour has an alternative. We will ring-fence every cent of the targeted capital gains tax for health, delivering a Medicare card and 3 free GP visits. Mr Chair, I want to briefly respond to points raised by Sam Uffindale regarding the retirement villages changes that his government has made. In effect, they are short-term. They create a two-tier system and they make people still wait for up to 12 months for their capital repayment. That is why I have a members' bill that fixes that, and I was pleased that earlier this year Mr Uffindale supported my bill. Mr Chair, this debate is about what kind of country we want to be.
A point of order, Sam Uffindale.
Member has incorrectly asserted a statement to me. I did not support her bill. I said we take good ideas wherever they may come from, and there were some good ideas, but I did not support her bill.
A genuine debating point, Mr Uffindale, and you may even like to mention that to one of your fellow speakers. But,
Point of order, Mr Speaker. May I have the last 20 minutes of my speech, given that the clock wasn't stopped?
well,
20 seconds.
Well, actually, given that the member has read her speech, no, I won't. She's an experienced member, so and I can encourage others who are going to be participating in this debate, please don't read speeches. But you have 10 seconds.
Speaker, Labor sees you seniors, we respect you, we want you to have great lives.
Honourable Aisha Verfel.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When we talk about the quality of life of older people in New Zealand, we are talking about respect. Respect for people who built this country, who paid their taxes, who raised families, and who have contributed to their community over decades. But what we are seeing from Christopher Luxon's government is not respect, it is neglect. Christopher Luxon promised to fix the economy, but instead it has gone backwards. As we heard yesterday, the financial situation is dire because of their unfunded tax cuts. And let's remember, how much did older New Zealanders get out of those tax cuts? How much were the tax cuts worth to a superannuitant? $3. Not even enough for a loaf of bread in Christopher Luxon's economy. And what is the price of those tax cuts been to New Zealanders? Well, it has been cuts to services, cuts that have sent our economy backwards and has meant that the services seniors need and deserve are harder than ever to reach. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the health system. And just today in the paper, information the government didn't want you to know, released to me in written parliamentary questions, another $510 million of cuts to health services up and down the country. These cuts are making it harder to access care, and in particular, general practice care. Visiting a GP is harder now than ever. Here is what someone wrote to me. A superannuitant wrote to me, my doctor's fees has increased to $75. I have cancelled 3 appointments in the last month because I cannot afford to see the doctor. I am a 73-year-old retired grandma with asthma, diabetes and high blood pressure. I desperately need the Coalition to do something about my health system, or else for myself and more people will die before our time. Mr Speaker, when you cannot access a general practitioner or your same general practitioner, your continuity of care suffers. And at that stage of life, in your latter years, when many people do have multiple conditions, general practice care is exactly what you need. Failing to provide this is not good medicine and it is not good government. It is the same story across the country and across multiple health services. Ambulance call-outs, a lifeline for many seniors, have gone up from $100 to $125 in the last year. Hospice services are being scaled back, for example, in Northland. Access to home support is being scaled back and people are getting less care that they need to live independently. And aged care facilities, as our committee has heard, are crying out for more resources and more staff. Mr Speaker, this is what happens when a weak government panders to big tobacco rather than the people who need them to care for them. Our country is going backwards under Christopher Luxon. He is making it harder and more expensive to see a doctor or a nurse, to get ambulance care, scans and x-rays. And Labor has a plan to fix this for everyone. In a country where everyone can get ahead, afford the basics, including good health care. We will provide every New Zealander with a Medicare card that will give them access to 3 free general practice visits. That is the basis of excellent health care, and every strong health system in the country has strong access to primary care as its foundation. That is the alternative. Make no mistake, this election is make or break for our health system, and the people jeering over there better pay attention, because everyone knows that the National Party has cut and cut and cut, and it is our seniors who are struggling and paying the price. They don't like to hear this over there. They don't like to hear this.
Ms Beryl, in your time left, could you just come back to the elderly part of this, please?
Oh, Mr Speaker, of course, access to care is of considerable significance to older New Zealanders. They face greater barriers when accessing health care because of the price and their fixed incomes. So Labor makes no apologies for siding with older New Zealanders and those struggling with the cost of living and making sure health care is accessible to all.
Dr. Lawrence Zunaan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The issue of seniors is a serious one, and I want to talk over all previous speakers have said that this is something that we should look carefully, seriously, with a long-term goal that is non-partisan. This is what we've heard this morning from the Retirement Commission. The reason for that is simple, because we are seeing a drastic increase in our seniors population. By 2050, the number of over 65 will increase by 50%. We're currently sitting at roughly 900,000 of people over the age of 65. The number of people who are over the age of 85 will also drastically increase. In the latest report by the Retirement Commissioner, we see that 44% are feeling exposed in terms of their daily living. 16.8% over the age of 65 are in poverty, which is higher than the OECD average of 14.2%. We see home ownership going down from 83% to 71% currently. We're seeing still the number of people over the age of 65 with mortgages at 13%. 13% of our over 65 are currently renting, and that is projected to go up to 40%, or 600,000 people in 2040. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a serious concern, and this is a concern that should be shared by everyone. We are seeing some changes, and we're seeing movements. We're seeing the creation of the New Zealand Super Fund, the KiwiSavers, which has helped this drastically, and that was something supported by the government and by the parties in government at the time unanimously, because this is the sort of vision that we should be having if we want to address this issue. And this issue is not isolated to Aotearoa New Zealand. It is a global issue we're facing. However, I will say it is disappointing to see in the latest report that seniors in terms of subsidies for public transport has been reduced from 75% to 65%. And the rationale was given is we didn't anticipate the usage. We didn't anticipate the number of people. But I thought that would have been a good thing. But the point is that any government should be able to look at this and going, it's a good thing that disabled people and seniors are using our public transport, because the ability to get around and the freedom of movement is a fundamental right for anyone, and that includes our disabled whānau, that includes our seniors whānau. So I would ask the government to seriously consider reverting that reduction. We're also seeing that in the work and retirement study found that a third of older people living in a community are at risk of malnutrition, rising to 50% for older Māori. 93% entering age residential care were malnourished or at risk of malnutrition. We're seeing 28% of over 65 buying less food, 28% put off medical treatment. We're seeing that the rejection rate for food grants, for hardship food grants by MSD for over the age of 65 rising, tripling from 3% to a peak of 10.2% from December 2024. These are serious concerns, Mr. Speaker, because what we are seeing here is that the people over the age of 65 are unable to meet the very basic human rights to housing, to health, to nutritious food. There are obviously other things that the previous speaker, Sam Uffendells, the chair of House Select Committee, also mentioned from the residential care sector, from the retirement village sector, from home and community care sector, but there simply isn't enough time within 5 minutes to even address the concerns there. Seniors thrive in all diversities and with dignity and autonomy in vibrant intergenerational communities. That is the vision that the Green Party have for seniors. This is why in our Green Party budget, we are seeing for seniors free GP, not simply 3 visit, free GP in general, free dental care, scale up dedicated funding for care, and also scale up public housing supply with universal design. These are the things that our future communities, the generations of future seniors and over 65 and 85s will need, and we are asking for your support on this.
Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Brooke Van Velden.
Mr. Speaker, it's a real pleasure to rise this morning on behalf of the ACT Party to take a call on this debate on the quality of life of ageing New Zealanders. And I must firstly acknowledge the irony of being the youngest ACT member and the youngest member of Cabinet talking about ageing New Zealanders. And now, as far as I'm aware, I've been in this place for 8 years now, and I'm yet to discover a grey hair on my head. So it's not about me, but it is about other people around the country. And I'll tell you where I meet quite a few people who are ageing in our community, and that's by being the MP for Tamaki. I go around our community a lot, and I encounter so many wonderful older New Zealanders who have a huge wealth of knowledge and a respect for our community, and I really thank them for the support that they give me personally as well. You know, I've encountered many of our older members of the Tamaki community who in some ways have called me their surrogate granddaughter, and I know it's been very, very sweet, but I know it's meant with a lot of love and respect. And I've met some remarkable Kiwis, people who are at Holocaust memorial events, wanting to dedicate the past, people at retirement villages engaging in political debate, or people who have been at dementia care units, as well as people who have given up 20 years of service as JPs in their community. It's really wonderful. But, Madam Speaker, I believe it is one of the best times ever to be an ageing New Zealander. It is better than so many years of the past because we have people who are living longer than ever. We have so many new, exciting medicines constantly being innovated. We have access to new technology and new modes of transport. You know, we have really exciting technological advances happening in things like dementia care, where I've talked to people who are looking at studying eye movements and just the shuddering around an eye to determine whether or not they are over-medicating people who have dementia, because they can actually under-medicate now or get the specifications right, because the new technology is allowing these people to have more information about how to genuinely care rather than medicate people in dementia care. So it's really exciting stuff. And also for family, we've got video calls. You know, in the past where you didn't have access to new forms of technology, you were more isolated from some members of the community. And in some instances, there is some forms of loneliness in the community, and I put on a lot of community events in Tamaki to ensure that we have people who have access to knowledge and learning and political debate. But there are good things that this government is doing to ensure that these people who are older in our communities have even better lives. And we've brought on new planning and development reforms for granny flats so that people don't have to be isolated in old age. They can actually live right by their family, just next door in the backyard. I think that's wonderful. We've seen this government invest more than ever in modern medicines. We've seen the breast cancer screening age increase to 74 so that older Kiwis have more access to treatment and care. And there are some areas, though, where I think we're going to see even more exciting progress with innovation on the way, so that as people are losing the ability to walk as much as they may have done in the past, we're seeing new AI and we're seeing new automated movement devices that will allow people to continue walking. And I think this is really, really quite astounding. And so we don't have to be like the opposition, which is all doom and gloom about what does the future look like. The future is exciting. It's so exciting about how people can age well.
Don't bring the Speaker into the debate, Mr Davidson.
Age well in their own homes with modern technology, age well in retirement villages, and age well in granny flats. There is still some more that we can do, though. We know that for some more vulnerable members of the community, it is confusing for them to read the contracts that they're signing when they're going into retirement villages. And I think some of the work that this government is doing to try and streamline the rights for people in retirement villages is really exciting, because we know that there are some more vulnerable people who do need a little bit more help there. But we can get the settings right for development. We can keep investing in technology. We can keep investing in Pharmac. And we can make sure that we've got all of our government settings right, so that there is the ability for new, exciting technology and innovation for ageing New Zealanders. Thank you.
Honourable Casey Costello.
Madam Speaker, I am absolutely thrilled to be able to take a call in this important debate as a New Zealand First member and on behalf of my party, who has an unrivalled record of delivering a better quality of life for older New Zealanders. We have introduced and will continue to introduce the practical solutions that ensure that our older New Zealanders live a great life as they age, and that they continue to ensure that New Zealand is a wonderful place to grow old in. First and foremost, protecting the age of superannuation is a bottom line position for New Zealand First and part of our coalition agreement. We are increasingly put under pressure to raise the age of superannuation entitlement. But the reality is, Madam Speaker, is that we spend approximately 5% of our GDP on superannuation, and that is considerably less than the OECD average of 8%. That sum ensures that every single New Zealander is guaranteed a minimum income in their age. And that is a simple, relatively straightforward system that is internationally revered as a good solution for the system that we have in New Zealand. And of course, that is a blunt measure of the GDP percentage and quota, because it doesn't actually reflect that what that number does in terms of the contribution that our older New Zealanders make to our society as a whole. We have to acknowledge that many over 65s continue in employment because they choose to, not because they have to. They own businesses, they drive our sports clubs, they deliver voluntary services, they support our working parents looking after their grandchildren, they mentor, they coach, they inspire, they create. That is what our over 65s deliver for New Zealand. They are not a problem we need to solve. They are an opportunity for us to be a better country. But it is not just superannuation that New Zealand First has delivered on. As part of this government, we have increased the rates rebate scheme for all super gold card holders. Again, a token towards this cost of living pressures. The Select Committee inquiry, which has been a really important process to really delve into our system and what it needs. We have expanded housing opportunities to give better solutions, not just anecdotes and narratives, but actually something practical around the 70 square metre subsidiary dwellings to support multi-generational living, to support the utopia that the Green Party was talking about that I'm not quite sure how we're going to pay for because no worker is going to be able to retire with the taxes they're going to have to pay to meet that system. We have launched the Better Later Life Action Plan, and the action plan is important because it delivers all of those supporting functions that allows New Zealanders to live well. It is about connecting societies better. It is about legal protections. It is about housing solutions. It is about how we ensure that there is a quality of life. And let's not forget what this government has done for law and order. Because if you want to age with quality and dignity in New Zealand, you need to feel safe and secure. And I know only too well that when you're an older person as a victim of crime, those impacts are devastating. It isolates you from society. It sometimes even estranges you from your own home. We are going to continue to live, Madam Speaker. We have an ageing population, as I said, of about 900,000 over 65s in New Zealand. But the reality is, despite this narrative, over 85% of that 900,000 actually are not dependent on the health system. They are living independently and they are living well. This is the point that we need to make. We are living longer, but we are living well. We have also introduced the Ministerial Advisory Group to ensure that we have a review of the aged care system, not as Labor did, just appoint an aged care commissioner, but actually redesign the system, actually ensure we have a sustainable system in the future. The reality is, Madam Speaker, in this country, we all sit underneath the shade of a tree planted by someone who lived before us, and we owe that dignity. And New Zealand First will ensure that we protect the family so that we can have strong families, so that we can be accountable to our own futures. We can also be accountable to the people we owe our life to. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Debbie Nauru-Peka.
Tēnā koe te pika. I rise today in honour of our kaumātua, our elderly, those grandparents who were fortunate to raise us, who were part of intergenerational living, certainly in my village, that's where I've come from, the aunties and uncles that are part of our everyday life, the way that they were able to look after not only us as a whānau, the extended whānau and the wider community. I mihi to all of those volunteers that are out there that would make sure that church would look good, that the marae would look good, that the gardens of everyone else that couldn't garden would look great, that the sports clubs, the coaching, the refereeing, the judging would always be happening. And I guess, you know, you take for granted that type of dignity and forever giving to us. And it comes at a time when, you know, we've looked at some of this report and the detail that it brings out, and it would be great to say that all have future-proofed themselves to be able to live with the dignity that they deserve, with the private health insurances and the asset base that they need. But that isn't the case for every kaumātua, because many spent their life not only working and paying taxes, but actually contributing to the society that we live in today. And I want to also mihi that there is an obligation, not that they put on me, that I feel an obligation to not only what they contributed to making us who we are today, but how we have that reciprocated love to look after the next generation in the same way that they did with us. So when we see a report that says that not all of our elderly, in fact nearly 4 in 10, said their quality of life has declined in just the past 2 years. 1 in 4 seniors in this country are now living with poor quality of life. And the biggest pressure are not luxuries, are not the fact that they want to eat fish once a week or they'd like to have a piece of steak. It is the cost of living, the healthcare costs, the healthcare access, the housing and financial security. And this is on all of us. This is on all of us to acknowledge that this isn't a personal failure, this is a policy failure. And when the report shows that 41% of our kaumātua say that health and aged care system is not at all culturally fit for them, This again is on all of us to decide indeed what the opportunities are and how we make this phase of their life something that doesn't make them feel like a burden on society, but in fact a taonga, because I was raised in a culture where our kaumata are indeed taonga, just as our mokopuna are. And so I think we have to talk about equity and how we dismantle and remove the barriers for our kaumata, for our elderly, and how we make sure that it's quietly done in a way that doesn't make the kaumata, the elderly, their families feel that the burden has shifted onto them. And there have been some really good research and ideas for us all to consider of what that could look like. And it could look like us being able to scale up in the community support, whether that be marae, whether that be whānau ora, whether that be community-led in-home care models. Some of the support and research has shown that we need to pay whānau carers properly. It is indeed an honour to look after kaumata, but it also has a financial obligation that we could be doing, and unpaid care is popping up in broken systems. I think retrofitting homes for safety and to make sure that accessibility and that investment for them to be able to live well is something that we could be talking about and creating policy around. I think also fixing healthcare access for seniors, so they're guaranteed free primary care and prescriptions for over 65, yes, with equity weighting, and reduce wait times, investing in workforce. I know this isn't new to many of us in the House, but public capacity, not privatisation. I think tackling loneliness as an infrastructure is something that was really hard to read, and I have seen that in my own community, and how we fund community connectors, whether that be a transport, whether that be the churches, whether that be marae, but treat transport and digital access and social participation as health determinants. These are some ideas. What I would hate us to do is to debate the opportunities and the solutions, because we do have an ageing population and they deserve us to all work together in dignity with respect that they have bestowed into all of us. And I do hope that we are looking at our elderly and kaumata who are not good at asking for charity, and we front foot with what solid policy as a nation that looks after all its citizens, particularly its kaumata, its elderly, would look like. Kia ora.
Hamish Campbell.
Madam Speaker, it is an absolute honour to rise and speak in this debate, and I do just want to acknowledge the speech that just preceded me and the thoughtfulness that it was delivered with, because, Madam Speaker, ageing well is not something that's political. It is something that we should have a bipartisan approach to. Yeah. Growing old is a privilege. Some of us won't make old bones. And we think of those loved ones who haven't made it to old age, and we acknowledge their passing early. Luckily, of course, age and life expectancy is increasing here in New Zealand. For Māori, it's gone up 3.1 years. For non-Māori, between 1.5 and 1.6 years. And I do just want to acknowledge all the great medical researchers up and down this country that are contributing to that and helping that happens. Living longer is also about living better, and we've heard that not every 900,000 persons over 65 is dependent on the healthcare system. And I think as I move around my electorate, the many great interactions that I have with that age group. It's about living well, it's about living better, it's about living with independence, dignity, connection, and real choice about how and where we live. And this matters to all of us and to all our families. We all probably have parents, maybe even grandparents, and I'll acknowledge my parents in their mid-80s that may be considered in this category. Of course, it is something that New Zealand does have to face. We are an ageing nation. As has been already mentioned, there's 900,000 people over the age of 65 now. That's projected to be over 2 million by the year 2070. But the good news is many of those New Zealanders are still very active, engaged, and contributing enormously to their families, their communities, and of course our economy. I love visiting the older communities in the Islay electorate, whether it's the Holly Lee, the Russley Village, Somerset at Avonhead, Bellevue, Bupa Park Zone. Always have very good interactions there. The lived experience that people can tell, the stories they can tell, they are well read, they are well educated, and they keep you on your toes. But it isn't just about retirement villages and aged care. Also recently had a visit to Bishopdale Men's Shed, where of course men's sheds help reduce social isolation, improve mental well-being and foster a sense of purpose and belonging, something that's very important in the 65 plus, especially for us males who may tend not to be overly social. They're doing amazing work in the community, building things for local community groups, local schools, and it is a way that men can get together and still be productive. But the average does hide some hard truths. For many older New Zealanders, ageing is accompanied by insecure housing, fragmented healthcare and uncertainty about their rights, particularly as they move into retirement living. And if we want people to age well, the evidence is clear. 3 things matter most. First, connection. And research and work of organisations like Age Concern consistently show that social isolation and loneliness are amongst the strongest predictors of poor health and poor outcomes. Loneliness is not just about being sad, it increases the risk of hospitalisation, cognitive decline and early death. Ageing well means engaging with local services, volunteering, working with clubs, maraes, libraries and places where older people can be visible, valued and connected. Secondly, it's health span, not just lifespan. It's ageing well is about making sure it's about preventing falls, strength and balance programs, medication reviews, hearing and vision support and timely access to primary health care. And that is why I'm so proud of this government's work to increase access to primary health care, whether it be through telehealth or training further healthcare workers to make sure we can get there. And thirdly, it is about home and place. And that is why we have been working very hard to make sure more New Zealanders can get into housing. The highest level of first home buyers in the last couple of months have been able to access housing. This is going to have a huge impact when this generation gets older. So we are delivering what matters to older New Zealanders. We're helping keep prices down. We saw an increase of inflation of over 25% under the previous government, yet in the last 3 months we've seen month-on-month decrease in food pricing. We are working on what matters, fixing the basics and building the future.
Good work. Kushla Tanari Manuel.
Tēnā koe e te māngai o te whare, o tira tēnā tātou katoa. Madam Chair, as we head into Christmas and of course the new year, a time of joy, it is also a time of reflection and sadness that I will not have my parents, my nieces and nephews and mokos won't have their nanny and papa. But it's also a time to reflect on the fact that I did have my great-grandmother until she was 101 years old, and I was raised